hit that.
Jim Carroll, Ralph Baber, psychology takeaway. You need a dose of the real. Life's absurd. We know the deal. Did you hear? Don't let it get you down. Turn that frown. Upside down, upside down, 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 upside.
Hi there, this is Jim.
And Ralph?
Hey, Ralph. Did you hear any sound with our intro?
I did.
I didn't hear a thing. Okay. Maybe I'm becoming deaf in my old age. Who knows?
Who knows? I hope that's not true.
Okay, but you heard it, so on we go. Ralph, the other day you and I were talking about character,
Right.
and you postulated that schools nowadays aren't teaching character, but in the past they were, right?
Yes, and I said that I thought character could be taught.
Okay, and I chimed in that I didn't think character could be taught.
Okay.
So, well, already we have a disagreement.
Right. Now, one of the things that...
So we have a podcast, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things that we should be able to do is, in thinking of the difference between us, is starting out maybe with some definitions of what we mean by character.
It's always a good place to start. Okay.
So I'm going to give you some words: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, character, caring, and citizenship. Okay?
Okay.
So those are some terms that we might apply to a person of good character.
How does citizenship fit in?
Well, I think citizenship is something that a person of good character feels a responsibility to and for, and says, I don't care what other people do or say, but I have a belief in what good government does, and I'm going to go and vote for what I think is the best representative for me to give us good government.
Okay, I gotcha. Oops. I just took us to the ceiling here.
Well,
Okay. You notice we're not going back and forth because I failed to push the auto camera button. Okay,
well.
so, hey, part of my character is, what, forgetfulness? And
Forgetfulness and pushing the wrong button that takes us up to the ceiling.
Okay. Yeah, we've pushed a few buttons in our day, haven't we, Ralph?
We have.
Okay,
Now-
so I'm going to buy what you're saying, that those are characteristics of character.
Yeah.
But-
now I'm going to give you some other terms here. I'm going to say courage, integrity, duty, responsibility, self-discipline,
Okay.
and perseverance.
He's a courageous person. She's a courageous person.
Yeah.
She is a self-determined person. She's a resilient person. Okay. Yeah.
So some of those are also terms that people will use to say this is a person of good character. They have perseverance, they have responsibility, and so on and so
Okay.
forth.
Now, I sense a little bit of a difference between list number 1 and list number 2. Is there some difference there in your mind?
I think only in terms of what people choose to use as the nouns that define what to them are good character. Now,
Okay.
I might say, for example, that for me, one of the things that exemplifies good character is that when you give your word to somebody, you will live up to it.
Okay.
You make a deal, you shake somebody's hand on a deal, that's as good as a binding contract,
Okay.
So those are characteristics, I think, of responsibility and honesty.
Okay.
So,
Now,
you depend on the words you use to define it.
okay, now your idea was that education in some way teaches this. And, education teaches Algebra 101, but there isn't a course called Character 101.
No, there isn't. And one of the things that I would argue is that in a lot of cases, looking at stories, whether they're stories that go back away from into the, say, 1600s or 1800s, or they're stories which are written in 2025. When you talk to students about the story and you look at a protagonist who's a hero
Uh-huh.
or a protagonist who's mixed, he's got some heroic qualities and some nasty qualities. Think of, for example, TV shows. We can look at a TV show like The Punisher.
Never heard of it.
No, but it's a relatively recent show
Okay.
where the guy is the hero, but he also is pretty ruthless in terms of killing people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not a great character trait.
No. So you say to yourself, okay, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Well, he's trying to help himself get revenge for the unfair killing of his family. He's trying to help somebody who's helpless, et cetera, et cetera. So you say, oh, he's got all these good characteristics, but then
But he's a murderer. Okay.
he's a vicious murderer.
Yeah.
So you look at that and you say, okay,
See
to a class. Now, talk to me about that. How do you see him? Do you see him as the hero or the villain? Is he a person of good character, or is he a person who you say, I wouldn't want to know him?
Okay, so that's if you had a discussion like that in the typical American classroom today, how do you think it would go? Not with the students; they would probably love it. How would it go with the administration and even the parents?
Well, I
I
think
think we're getting into moral relativism here.
Yeah,
Because some people are going to say, hey, the Punisher, the murderer guy, great. Other people are going to say, hey, the murderer guy, So we're going to get polarization pretty quickly here.
we are. And, some of the people, you look at some of the things that can polarize people very quickly. Without getting into somebody as dichotomous as the Punisher, but suppose you wrote a story or did a story in a classroom, let's say in middle school, and you said, okay, one of the characters in this story is gender non-binary. And some people would say, well, that's okay in your class. And some people would say, no, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go home and tell their parents. And some of the parents would say, oh, yeah, that's a good learning experience for you to realize that there are people who can't quite make up their mind whether they're boys or girls. And there would be other people who would say, oh, that's disgusting. We have to take that story out of the curriculum.
Okay, or take that book out of the library, which
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of. Speaking of books, Ralph, we have a guest.
Okay.
Now, the guest is invisible, well, sort of invisible, but the guest is Sheila. And I think from time to time we're going to have a Sheila minute
Okay.
where she can give us some light on the subjects that we're talking about. And one of the things that she knows quite a bit about is literature. And
Okay.
one of the things that she's pretty passionate about is that good literature can develop good character.
Okay.
It's going to take me a minute to get over here to get this. Okay. Now, this is an experiment, so hang in there, okay? Why don't you hum or something, Ralph?
Okay. So let's talk for a moment before we get Sheila coming on about some of the educational shifts that have happened. One of them is standard testing focus, where we tend to say now that the educational metrics can be measured by standardized testing, and you say, well, okay, that's good if you're teaching algebra, but maybe it's not so good if you're trying to measure emotional growth. You know, one of the things that we've taken away from a lot of education is values education.
Sheila, what is your stand on development of character?
When you're talking about parents or school, I think I'll start with school first because back in the late 60s, maybe 70s, we took God out of school. We took the Ten Commandments off the wall and so on. And lo and behold, it didn't take very long when all of a sudden teachers and other educators were noticing that the kids were just not behaving right. So they initiated character curriculum. And it was actually, this isn't a subject taught so much as it was something that was incorporated into the rest. So here's my take on this. First of all, you can't teach character. So I think there's a misunderstanding of what character is. Character is not something like an idea that you give to somebody and then they take it up. Character is a slightly bigger concept. There's an old-fashioned word called virtue, and virtue is the qualities that a person has: courage, integrity, compassion, empathy, so on. These make up a person's character. So you see, when you're in a school and trying to teach courage as a concept, it's really hard for kids because they're very visual and they learn by experience in order to embody this idea. And in my opinion, the only really good way to do this is through what are called living books. In other words, books that have characters, good and bad, learning through the story that actions have consequences. There was a reason why in earlier educations, the Greek myths, Roman myths, the Norse myths, the fairy tales, all of those are part of a curriculum that doesn't even exist anymore. And in those stories were what's called moral imagination. In other words, it's writ large in a beautiful way that a child can enjoy the ideas of courage, integrity, empathy, compassion, and so on. And once you begin to understand what that is, then it's just in the nature of being a human being. You start to live it out. And so the quality of your character begins to be formed.
Okay, so courage. A book like Old Man in the Sea would demonstrate courage to a young adult, right?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So the loss of these great books is, I think, one of the things that needs to be brought back into education. Now, about parents, the same is actually true, except that parents have a more unique opportunity. They have the bedtime story. They have the well, hopefully they have, the dinner time story. These are all things, and they don't necessarily have to read myths or fairy tales or classic works like Old Man and the Sea. You can tell stories from their own childhood.
Yeah, like in your case, how your great great grandmother Bridget came over to America as a 12 or 13-year-old
Yes.
kid, and that took courage.
It took tremendous courage. So knowing that there's a person in your family who was like that, it does something to you inside. It makes you want to be like that.
Okay, well, thank you. You've really moved our conversation along, and Ralph and I will continue to reflect upon courage, virtue, education, whether it can be taught or how it is learned. Thank you for coming on board, Sheila, and I think we're going to have a Sheila minute from time to time.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, well, Sheila minute. What did you think, Ralph?
I thought what Sheila had to say was very good. Now, she focused on values, which is something that a lot of schools have taken out of their institution because
Conflict in values.
yeah,
My value might not be your value. Right?
Yeah,
Is there
and-
an absolute value? Is there truth?
well, there's a fear in a lot of boards of education that institutional or religious bias, which could happen. The example that I gave earlier would be a good one. And so what they've done is go to an example or a paradigm of strict moral neutrality. Now,
Okay.
Can
Does that mean that anything is okay, or everything is okay?
Everything's okay, anything's okay, and then you end up, with the Punisher. You've got a good guy who's also a bad guy, morally neutral. How do you associate your take on him? Well, my association with that is it makes an interesting question. Is he a good guy or a bad guy or a mixture like many people are? And what should happen to him at the end? Should he be rewarded? Should he himself be punished? Or should he be killed?
Yeah,
and you
good
could
questions, yeah.
you could say to yourself, well, as a student, I'm in 10th grade, I say, oh, he's a good guy. Or I'm another student and I say, oh, he's a bad guy. And then as a third student, I say, well, he's both good and bad, but he should be killed at the end.
Okay.
The only suitable end for the Punisher is to be punished.
Okay, so death penalty advocate here, right?
Yeah,
No.
or at least, he gets, he kills the villain, but he also gets shot to death,
okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you adopt a stance of moral neutrality, then you can't really successfully argue that moral virtue is the good way to live. Because you're saying, no, I'm neutral. I'm not going to tell you that this stance is good, that stance is bad. I'm just neutral.
Okay, in some ways it reminds me of Pascal's wager. Are you going to believe in God or not? And Pascal would argue that you believe in God because, hey, if there is no God, there's no problem. But if there is a God and you don't believe, you got some difficulties ahead of you.
Yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
And the example that I might use is, not so abstract as that, but if you owe the bank $100,000 and you can't pay, you've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you owe the bank $10 million and you can't pay, the bank has a problem. So the thing is, that's Pascal's reduced to a question of dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
But today, a lot of things happen in education. We have overcrowded classrooms that
Right. I mean, teachers can barely teach adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division. So we're asking them to teach character. I don't think it's going to work.
Well,
I think character has to be demonstrated at home. It has to be demonstrated with the actions of our leaders. If a leader demonstrates clear thinking and honesty, that would be a good model for me as a kid. If,
Okay.
however, I look at a leader and my perception is that they're not engaged in clear thinking, they're not engaged in moral behavior, then I would conclude that hey, it's impossible. If this person can't be a person of character, why should I think that I can be a person of character?
Yeah, now, one of the things that we can look at, and we talked a couple of sessions ago about language.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good example. The MAGA Republicans,
Make
Let-
America great again, Republicans, yeah.
yeah, let's say they mostly are people who live outside the urban areas.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that statistically that would be true. And a lot of them are, quote, common people. Now, the urban blue states, their representatives have started using in the last 6 months to maybe a year and a half a lot of what we would consider profanities or obscenities.
Okay.
They dropped the F-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
What are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to convince other people that they represent the ordinary person.
Okay, we do this all the time in our show, right?
Yeah.
There's profanity and yeah, and we're about as ordinary as dirt.
Right.
Okay.
So the
they're
thing
missing
is
it.
that we try never to use
Profanity.
profanity
Yeah.
or obscenity. But that's because of who we are.
Okay.
So we were raised in two families of different locales, both in the same city, but both taught by our parents that those kinds of things were reserved for conditions of unusually great emotion and to be used in guarded ways. They were not just part of your everyday
Lexicon. Yeah,
lexicon.
I get you.
So-
Whereas today it seems you can go anywhere and get the profanity and it's seen as okay. So my question here again is, are we teaching good character in schools? I don't think so. Are we teaching bad character through our media? I would argue, yes. Now, one of the most popular books for kids in junior high or maybe advanced elementary school is Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at Greg, the star, he lies, he cheats, he steals, he betrays his friends, and he's the hero. What's the takeaway here?
What's the moral lesson?
Yeah. So
Anything you can get away with is okay.
that's the lesson. And is it okay?
No, it's never okay
Mm-hmm.
if you're a person of good character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jim and I could say we had our values education from our parents. We had some of it in school from the things we read and the questions that the teachers asked of us. We had some of it in Sunday school. We had some of it in Cubs and Scouts. You know, we
But we never had Character 101, right?
no.
Okay.
And I don't think Character 101 as such can be successfully taught, but I think it can be successfully modeled. And that's what you have to do for your children.